Hi, this is Glenna Mason again in the 4-H kitchen. I'm the 4-H agent in Orangeburg and Calhoun County. Today in our Baking 101 class, we're making muffins. Muffins are so quick and easy, that's why they're called a quick bread. I'll start out with 2 different bowls. It's quite different from mixing up biscuits. When I'm mixing muffins, I'm mixing the dry ingredients in one bowl and the wet ingredients in the other bowl. That's why it's called the muffin method. All right, we'll get started with, and I need 2 cups of sifted flour. Remember when we made our biscuits, I put in my strainer or my sifter, I put in my flour, I sift it first. This is going to allow me to have a lighter, fluffier muffin, and I'll just put it through that strainer or sifter. If you don't have that, again, that's not absolute 100% necessary, but it just will make for a different texture in your muffin. So remember, when you're measuring your dry ingredients, I'm going to spoon that in, no tapping, no pressing down, and I'm going to level it off after I get through. I've got a knife here. I could use a straight edge spatula. I could use anything that was long and straight. Again, I don't want to tap it. I'll just move it around, level it off, and there I've got my 2 cups of flour. Okay? All right, so let's get ready and to mix up our other dry ingredients. I've got a tablespoon of baking powder. Baking powder, remember, has that straight edge on there, and we're going to take that and just level that off into our can and put that in our dry mixture. Okay, next I got 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Remember, when you're doing your 3/4 teaspoon, a 3/4 is 1/4 teaspoon 3 times, or a half and a 1/4. So I've got 3/4 teaspoon of salt. That's a dry ingredient, so that goes in here. I've got 3 tablespoons of sugar. Again, scoop it in, level it off. So those are all of my dry ingredients. So I'm just going to kind of give them a swirl around that they combine. The baking powder and salt is not all in one spot. I'm going to take this and I'm going to take my spoon and make a well or a hole in the middle of the bowl. Okay. To that well, I'm going to add my egg. Now remember, when you're cracking your egg, you need a separate bowl to do this. I hold the egg in the palm of my hand. I'm going to take my knife, give it a good whack. I'm going to break it open into this bowl, making sure that I don't have any eggshells. Once I see that I don't have any eggshells, then I'm going to add it to my wet ingredient bowl. Here's my egg with no shells. I'm going to add a cup of milk. Remember, when measuring our liquid ingredients, we want to measure that at eye level on a flat surface. Okay, there's my 1 cup of milk. To that, I'm going to add my vegetable oil. Now, vegetable oil is a liquid ingredient, but I only need 3 tablespoons, so I'm just going to simply pour that in with my wet ingredients. I forgot to get my whisk, so let me get my whisk. I'm going to whisk those together. Remember, dry ingredients in one bowl, wet ingredients in the other bowl. Once I get that egg and milk and oil incorporated, I'm ready to combine. In combining muffins, they do not have to be mixed very heavy. I just make my well in my bowl, pour my liquid ingredients all at one time into my bowl, and then I just stir. I want to stir until all the wet ingredients have combined with the dry ingredients. So I don't need a heavy hand, just stir until it's moistened. Scrape the sides of the bowl, get all that flour away. And I don't want to mix it so much that I get rid of my lumps, because muffins have lumps. I just want to stir this, scraping my bowl so that I don't see any of my white flour anymore. And I also want to make sure that it's incorporated, so I don't have to beat it with my whisk. I just make sure I don't see parts of my egg in there, and I don't see the flour. All right, so I've given you several different recipes that you can try. This is just a basic ingredient. So I can make this, pour these into muffins, and they'll be great to serve like a biscuit or a roll for dinner, or I can add some things to it. Before we get to adding things to this today, let's talk about my muffin pan. I've got several different ways I can do this. I've got a muffin pan. I can use it with paper liners. I would just spray this with my vegetable spray, or if I don't want to spray it, I could put in paper liners, okay? Or I've given you some silicone muffin cups. These you do not have to spray. They would be like a paper liner, but I would put them on a baking sheet because they are a little flimsy. So you can spread out your muffin cups on your baking sheet and bake them like this. I can even make these muffins into little mini muffins. So if you have a variety of muffin pans, or if you want to use your silicone muffin pans to try those out, I think those are really neat because they're new and different, and you might not have used those before. But I could take a simple muffin pan and I could make it into mini muffins if I wanted to. For this muffin, one of the things that you can do is to put blueberries in it. I could put bananas in it. There's just a variety of ways. I've got 1 cup of blueberries in here, and I've tossed them with about a tablespoon of flour just to make sure my blueberries do not float to the bottom of my muffins. So I'm going to add my blueberries to my muffin mix. Again, you can add bananas to yours. There's several different recipes that I've given you. So I'm going to just fold over the batter. I don't want to stir these up too much. If I stir them up too much, I'm going to have a blue batter and my blueberries will be over mixed. So I'm just going to scrape to the bottom of the bowl, turn them over, make sure I have my blueberries all incorporated. So it's just a folding over the dough, making sure they're all involved. All right, now let's get to our baking pan. I'm going to do some in my baking sheet, and I'm going to do some in a muffin tin. So we'll do half and half. One way that you can get your muffin cups ready is to take 2 spoons to do this, or I can get an ice cream scoop. If you happen to have an ice cream scoop, this makes really a neat idea to use that. Or if you don't have an ice cream scoop, you could use just 2 spoons. All right, I'm going to get some more paper liners because I'm making 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or I've got 2 more of these baking cups, and I'll make 6 and 6 out of each place. Okay? All right, so again, I can take 2 spoons. I want to get my pan and I want to get my batter close to one another so I don't dribble it all over the place. I can scoop up with my spoon, and then I can use my other spoon as a pusher. So I can push that off. If you fill up your muffin cups too much, then they're going to overflow. 2/3 cup is a little bit more than halfway in your baking pan. All right, let's use the ice cream scoop. If I scoop this up in my pan and I can put it into my muffin cup, okay, I can do that as well. So either way, whichever way you wish to choose, and you can get your muffins made. One more, make sure you're close at hand. Scoop that in so you don't mess up your pan. Generally about 1 scoop is going to do it. So I'm going to finish filling out these muffin tins, and then I'll come back and show you how to make a streusel topping. Later. Hi, we're back. We're ready to get our muffins in the oven. But before we do, you can see I've got all of my muffin cups out. My silicone ones are on a baking sheet. They're all about 2/3 full. So again, don't forget to make sure that you don't fill them up too much. Now, I've got a streusel topping. This works for anything that you want a little brown sugary mixture on top. So I'm going to make a streusel topping. To do that, I need 1/4 cup of butter, and it needs to be cold. So I want to measure out 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure I just got this out of the refrigerator. It does not have to be warmed up. Okay, and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut it into little pieces before I put it into my bowl. So I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm just going to cut off little pieces and drop it into my bowl. Remember what you did with that biscuit pastry blender when we made our biscuits? Well, we're going to use that again for our streusel topping. I do not want to make a dough out of this. That's why I don't want my butter to be warm. I want it to be cold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pastry blender that we used our biscuits on, and we're just going to cut into this butter. I've got brown sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of regular sugar, 1/2 cup of flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and just a dash of salt in here. So I'm just going to simply cut this butter in, sort of like you cut in your shortening into your biscuits, and I want small little pieces of this butter. It's going to be sprinkled over the top, and as you can see, my butter's getting along the side of there, so just rake that off, keep going. I want to make sure that this is just a crumb topping that we're going to put over our muffins. So it takes a little bit of while. I could have probably used a little bit bigger bowl, but we're doing with what we have here in the kitchen. So I just keep cutting over and over and over again. Making sure I'm going to get my streusel topping on the bottom. Scrape it off on the sides. That may require a little bit of work, and keep going. Just like our biscuits, I want to make sure this butter is incorporated into my sugar. So it should be like your biscuits, just a little pebble of butter and sugar, and it should look like peas. Okay. I can put this on a loaf bread. I could put this on any muffins. If you don't want the cinnamon in there, I like cinnamon, but if you don't, you could take out the cinnamon. All right, I think I'm just about done. Scrape off my sides. And I'm going to take a spoon, and I'm just going to put this right over the top of my muffins. So let me clean off my pastry blender. I'm going to take a spoon, and I'll just sprinkle that over the top. So this is called a streusel topping. I could take some nuts and put some nuts over the top of this. My husband doesn't care for nuts in his food, so I think I'm going to hang with just a streusel topping. This should do about 12 muffins. All right, there's my first pan. I'll continue with the second pan. We're going to put these in an oven of 425, so make sure you preheat your oven before you start mixing. As always, when we're baking, this says it bakes 15 to 18 minutes. I'm going to put it for 15 minutes first, and then I'm going to go check. So you always want to go with the lower amount of time and then check them. And then if you need additional time, you can always add that to it. So I'm getting hungry for some muffins. Are you? We'll see these after they get baked. Hi there, my muffins are done. Don't they look pretty? I'm so ready to eat these, and they smell so good. I would take my silicone muffin cups off of my baking sheet. I've got a cooling rack just to let them cool a little bit before I take them out of my pan. Let's talk about baking our muffins and knowing when they're done. We talked about setting the oven temperature for the lowest temperature first, and then checking them, and then that way you can add a couple more minutes. I want to take this is a cake tester, which is a metal spike, or I could take a toothpick and I just simply push down in the center of my muffin, when I take it out, it should not be gooey. It should have just a little crumbs. My cake tester is a handy gadget. If you get to a kitchen store sometimes, you can pick one of those up. Same thing, I put it in there. If it comes out gooey, then I know my muffins are not done. These baking cups have been cooling for a little bit. If I need to take, my streusel topping may have gotten on the pan like some of mine did. Just take a straight edge knife and you're going to pull that right out of the pan. Let these cool for about 10 minutes and then you'll either be ready to eat, or I would not cool them in this muffin tin because they would get soggy. So always take them out of your muffin tin. Let them cool thoroughly, and I'm going to enjoy a warm muffin. This one's being stubborn. That streusel topping did get on my muffin pan just a little bit. Alright, so there we go. We've got muffins. Muffins freeze really well if you want to put them in the freezer for later. They freeze really well. Experiment with all the different types of muffins that I've given you, and I know you're going to find a favorite that you really like. Take care. See you next time.